Welcome back, everyone, to just another day in the life of a military wife. And today's topic partly comes from a military spouse in Hawaii who informed me of a completely mind-blowing situation that over 3,000 military families are facing currently. And this has to do with the mass evacuation due to a serious mess up. And we are going to dig into that. We are going to dig into this wonderful time of year and our ability to explain to the Department of Defense how we really feel about military housing. Hopefully they listen. Yeah. I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you are listening to Life of a Military Wife. Okay, so let's just unpack all of this. It really is quite shocking, but sadly, it's not completely unprecedented. This is probably the biggest scale I know of, but that doesn't mean it's not been worse. The United States military has a tendency of treating its members as guinea pigs. We are congressional guinea pigs. And I know for certain, due to the fact that I have lived in one of these locations, that there has been at least one or two instances where the Air Force has tried out experimental new things that have ended up contaminating the groundwater. There's Agent Orange that they were introduced to. It's burn pits. It's just ridiculous the amount of chemicals the military members and their families are exposed to on a regular basis, not to mention the surrounding communities. Like I said, I know the Air Force had a situation in Texas and Colorado, largely because we lived in that area, where a fire retardant that they were using, it seeped into the water system, and they ended up having to clean out the contaminated water system, not only for the Air Force Base, but the surrounding community. So that gets into the whole situation in Hawaii. And if you haven't heard about it, I'm not surprised. I was shocked that nobody is really covering this. I researched everything. Most of the information I have has come from Military Times. There was a few articles from Yahoo News, and some other random news organization I'd never heard of previously. Outside of Hawaii, no one is really talking about this, and that is ridiculous. And that is ridiculous largely because of the scale of what has happened. So I don't know how many of you are all familiar with the Navy's refueling station in Hawaii called the Red Hills. It evidently supplies a huge amount of the petroleum for the Navy. Well, let's go through who knew what and when. Again, all of my information is from sources, news articles and stuff. Some of them are contradictory. There's not a lot of clear answers, and that's part of the reason why people are so angry right now. The best I can piece together, according to the timeline, there on November 20th of this last year, so just like a month and a half, 2 months ago, a worker ruptured a pipe at Red Hills, and then the petroleum proceeded to leak from that pipe into a ditch, contaminating the groundwater. Residents began complaining about an unusual smell and odor and film in their water system as early as Thanksgiving weekend, which was just a few days later. By November 28th, over 680 residents had filed complaints and notices, had it informed them, hey, there's something in our water. 680 notifications. November 28th. Secretary of the Navy is finally notified on the 29th of November that there is a situation with the petroleum tank. They have on the 28th shut it down. According to the Navy, as soon as they started getting reports from residents, they shut it down. But it was already in the water. It was already in the water, people. Red Hill Elementary tested positive for petroleum on December 1st. And this is where it gets a little conflicting. Either December 2nd or 3rd, the Red Hill well tested positive and the residents were notified. And 3,000 families, as I said, have been relocated from the Joint Base in Pearl Harbor, Hickman, and the Army Ali Manu military reservation. At best, they will be able to return sometime in February. A lot of families have elected to stay. They are currently being provided with clean water, laundry services, and facilities to shower in. But this is just ridiculous because that's scratching the surface. That's just who knew what and when. You start to read these families' accounts, pregnant women, nursing mothers, children, pets dying, major hospitalizations, rashes, throwing up, vomiting. This can cause gastrointestinal issues. It can cause neurological issues. This is not good, people. And why? Why did they not do something sooner? They shut off the fuel lines, according to the Navy, on the 28th. But they didn't tell the residents anything right away. They just let them keep drinking it. Just let them keep drinking it. They didn't even have to, and I know that there's going to be arguments made that this was a national security thing and they couldn't say that they were shutting down the fuel, whatever, and this or that or the other thing. Okay, make up a cover story. The military is great at cover stories. Just say, hey, we think there's something in the water. We're testing to try to figure out what it is, and we're concerned, and we want to take care of you. Stop drinking the water. We're going to bring in water facilities, or you can go other places. People will get their own freaking bottled water. Like, just say, information is continuing to come. We are going to test it and make sure we know exactly what it is. Just don't touch it. We're military families. We're used to not getting whole answers. But there is several, now there are multiple military families suing the housing over this situation. And I can only imagine that more lawsuits are going to be coming due to the fact that, again, there are animals who died. There are children and people who've ended up in the emergency room who've been affected by this. They've had to set up a whole hotline just to inform the pregnant women on what to look forward to. Like, this is pretty messed up. And that's only the tip of the iceberg, because now they're finding out that this has gone into the civilian water supply too. Not only is it affecting over 3,000 military families, but the surrounding community as well. They've flushed the system several times. They're going to continue to flush the system until it comes back clean. They don't know how long that's going to take. And what's mind-blowing is this isn't the first time this year that Red Hill has had a problem. Evidently, now that there's a congressional review going on, they have uncovered the fact that earlier last year, back in May, there was another leak. This went into a tunnel. So from everything I have been able to find, it sounds like it did not make its way outside of the facility, and that's why they were able to keep it under the wraps. But it's just, yeah, it's just mind-blowing. Yeah. So, again, like I said, it was a military spouse in Hawaii who alerted me to the situation. And I can understand the outrage by these families. There was a couple families who were saying that they felt like they had been betrayed. They sacrificed so much for our country, and the military officials didn't have their back, didn't protect them when they were at risk. And yeah, so so that is what is going down in Hawaii. And sadly, like I've mentioned before, the Air Force has had water contamination issues. Military families can get exposed to a whole lot of stuff, and we are guinea pigs. The housing we live in is ridiculously poorly maintained, poorly built. It is built by the lowest bidder. It is maintained by the lowest bidder. And, there is something we can do. Well, marginally. There is something we can do. You see, this time of the year, there are surveys put out by the Department of Defense, and they start in December. They go, some of them all the way through February, depending on your branch of service. And they allow the residents to anonymously express how they feel about their housing. The thing is, a lot of military families, because of massive situations like this, are quite honestly jaded. They don't feel like people really care what they think about their housing. We have lived in base housing. We lived in off-base housing. We've rented off-base. My husband's a handyman, or was a handyman prior to joining the military, so he knows how to maintain basic things. We've had issues where we knew there was a leak in our bathroom. We were telling them there was water damage and a leak in our bathroom for months, and they never believed us. And when they finally looked at it, they ended up having to rip out half the bathroom because it was destroyed by the water leak that we told them about, but they were just, couldn't get to. Okay. Yay. A listener told me about a situation at Drum where one of her neighbors kept reporting an electrical issue with the light in their stairwell, and the light bulb just kept burning out really quickly. So there was probably some sort of electrical thing going on. Again, I'm not the handy person. That's my husband. But finally housing said, we're not going to replace the light anymore. It's your fault. And she ended up falling down the stairs and breaking her leg because of it, because there was no light in her stairwell. Like, there's a reason why Congress has finally passed a Tenants' Bill of Rights for military residents, but they're still not protecting us. I feel like they do these surveys and they've passed this Bill of Rights and we're still not, there's a disconnect. There is a disconnect. But at the same time, we can't say, you know what, you guys don't care, you don't take care of it, blah, 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 because this is something else I found out by doing my research. According to the Army, in 2019, only 24.6% of residents of military Army housing responded to the survey. Okay, that's our bad. That's our bad. We may not feel like they are going to listen, but if we could get those response rates up, and if we could get honest responses about the genuine issues we have, and there are some Okay, it's not completely horrible living on post, but but if we could get genuinely honest response rates at a higher, responses at a higher rate, maybe they would take us more seriously. The Navy that same year only got a 35% response rate. That's our bad. We have to, as military families, take these seriously. Take these surveys, let our friends know about them, make a big deal about them, because it's our chance to speak up. And we can't expect things to get better if we don't advocate for ourselves. And the great thing about these is they are anonymous. So it's not a situation where you're like, oh, I'm just an E1, no one's going to listen to me. You might be just an E1, but it's anonymous. So you could be an E1 or you could be an O5. And they aren't going to know, really. Well, okay. The ones I have filled out didn't contain anything like that. Yeah. The other issue I have, and this is another thing that happens really commonly, I've noticed with military housing, is you will be ignored largely all year by housing. They won't fix things properly. They will just clear out things without ever actually doing them. And then magically, just magically, come December, all of a sudden, middle of the holidays, they have tons of people available to fix everything. We're on to you, housing. We're not dumb. We know the game you're playing. You can't ignore us all year and then just think we're going to be nice on the survey because you fixed something yesterday. No. That's not how the game's played. So we got to be honest, polite, but honest. And we've got to answer these surveys, people. So that is my big push to everyone today. Is with everything going down, if you are one of those families in Pearl Harbor, go for it. I support you. Fill out your survey and be brutally honest, because honestly, you have every right to be upset for not being told sooner. That's my opinion, my 2 cents. As a mom and an owner of a cute little fur baby, I would be spitting mad if that happened to my family. Just saying. And the fact that we know people there, yeah, it hits pretty dang close to home. Just saying. And that said, I mean, it's not just the Navy. Though the Navy's got the biggest boo-boo right now, but the Army has had problems. The Air Force has had problems. I've covered this before. Balfour Beatty has had 2 of its top-level employees for the state of Texas plead guilty for fraud. Balfour Beatty. Oh, yeah. And wait, do they still have government contracts? Yes, they do. Balfour Beatty might be investigated by the Air Force, but the Army is still using them. This has got to change, and it is not going to change unless we start advocating for ourselves in a polite and proper way. We're military families. We know how to do this. We know how to do paperwork, because that is one thing we are very good at doing. We have been taught how to do it by Uncle Sam. So let's do our paperwork, people. Let's have our voices heard. Fill out your survey. Speak up for your family. Inform your friends. If you have not received an email yet from your installation's housing and you want to fill out your survey, you start bugging them, because they should have put it out. If you've received yours and you have the link, you spread it far and wide. You put it out on all of the local, military spouse Facebook pages for everyone. You start talking to people in the pickup line at school. Let's make this happen. Because A 24.6 response rate, people? Come on, we can do better. 35%? Come on, we can do better. I don't even know what the Air Force got. I don't know, their score wasn't published, or at least where I saw. But we can do better. And we need to do better. So, my heart goes out to all of those families in Hawaii right now who are dealing with the absolute insanity that is their existence right now. I've heard that almost all of the hotels are completely booked because they've had to relocate 3,000 families. Not to mention the locals who are now being relocated. And it's got to be absolutely a nightmare. So yeah, my heart goes out to y'all. We are praying for you. And I sincerely hope that the Navy has learned its lesson and is going to fix the situation so that we don't have this happen again. Because military families don't deserve to be treated this way. With all we sacrifice for our country, we do not deserve to be treated this way, and no one does. We love our communities. Our host communities open up their arms to us. They make us parts of their family, and they don't deserve this either. So, that is my 2 cents, people. Again, thank you for the military spouse in Hawaii, Crystal, who brought it to my attention. I am very grateful for this. I cannot believe this is not getting bigger coverage. I cannot believe that the military community has not been more broadly made aware of this. But, we talk, so it's not going to stay hidden for long. That said, again, one more plug. Please do your survey. Do it now. It doesn't take long. I've done them before. And technically, both you and your spouse can do them. Do it twice. Maybe you don't agree. My husband and I don't always agree on the maintenance stuff. I'm a little bit more critical than he is. I think because he's a handyman, he's slightly nicer. But anyway, you are listening to Life of a Military Wife, and I am your host, Sam Wolf.